We are back. Alan Blumkin's taking control tonight. The three baseball Mashuganas,
like
Golenbock, Alan Blumkin, and me, Ralph Tyko.
Do I get a raise?
Yeah, you get twice as much money as you made last week.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it.
You get a cost of living increase.
Right, yes. 0.3%.
Right, just like my Social Security is going to have.
Just like mine, yeah.
January. But whose cost of living, I might ask?
That's a very good question.
Is it really living when you're on Social Security? But that's another story. This is a baseball week only. We're going to talk Chicago Cubs in their celebration. Alan is the only one here that was alive when they went to the pennant. No one on earth was alive when they won a World Series. And I'm going to let you start off, Alan. What do you think, huh? They're in the World Series.
Yeah, I'm not really surprised. I didn't really believe all the hoopla before the season started, but they've lived up to it. I guess you have to say Theo Epstein is a genius because he brought the Red Sox into the World Series and he brought the Cubs into the World Series.
I think if he wins the World Series, it might punch his ticket to Cooperstown.
Yeah, I thought that when the Cubs won the fourth game, and that series was basically over.
Right.
Outside of Kershaw and Hill, really didn't have any stars. Maeda was horrible. And they started that kid in Game 5 who pitched 3 perfect innings, and then he was rattled in the fourth by a bunt, a bloop single, and last night, as I've said, it's very hard to win when you don't score.
Absolutely.
Right. I also want to give credit to the Indians, who were, to me, a bigger shock than the Cubs, because nobody predicted that they would be where they are now. And
but of course, what the Indians have, they have Francona as their manager.
Yeah.
And he is absolutely terrific.
Yeah, I loved it when they stuck it to the Red Sox, because the Red Sox are my least favorite team.
What do you have against the Red Sox?
It had to be very satisfying for Francona.
Oh yeah, yeah, because of how they treated him at the end.
Well, the Red Sox letting both Francona go and Epstein go was absurd, and they're being punished for it.
Right.
It's
franchise.
It's interesting
that teams to let managers or general managers go. Tampa Bay is being punished for it.
Well, except that Tampa Bay was paying Joe Madden, the same rate as, working as a checkout person at the public supermarkets. and the Cubs gave him $5 million per year for 5 years. So, it's apples and oranges.
But it's kind of funny, though. You think back, Madden's in the World Series with the Cubs, and you're in Tampa. I'm out in Alameda, which is right across a small little bridge into Oakland, and I could literally walk, and sometimes do, to the Oakland Coliseum, and the gem that Oakland got, Addison Russell, the Cubs got from Oakland, Addison Russell, makes me very, very sad every time I watch him play for Oakland's sake. And God knows he's not the only one. Donaldson's another one that's an absolute superstar.
How'd they let him go? How stupid was that?
Well, it's the same old thing.
Moneyball is dead. You know that, don't you? Moneyball is dead. That whole business about Billy Bean and how fabulous, successful he's been using the tenets of Saber's Moneyball has turned out to be, not so hotsy-totsy.
Well, I
Well,
understand
it was going great guns until they start every year selling off their best players and for prospects and rebuilding, starting all over again. They have no real money coming in. They're on FM radio. I don't know.
Get out. They're on FM radio?
That's FM radio.
FM radio?
Yes.
What's that? FM radio?
In a day and age where the media controls your budget, basically, like big teams and what have you, they have nothing going for them. They don't have what they have is they're bilking the system of baseball, which means that the teams that pay the going rate pay an excess charge in terms of a feedback to the teams that aren't making it vis-a-vis the A's financially.
the luxury tax.
Well, see, there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that, and it's not unfair. I disagree with you on this point. It's not unfair at all. The reason
unless
they're
you're a
doing
fan
it,
of the team that's taking advantage of it.
No. There's an economic reason for it. The owners wanted a salary cap, which meant that with a salary cap, each team could only spend a certain amount of money that everybody would agree to. The union threw a shit fit. A salary cap is going to lower the amount of salary, and they were right. And so the compromise was that they would not have a salary cap, because a salary cap would have meant a strike. So instead they came up with this notion that, okay, owners can spend as much as they want, but if they spend over X number of millions of dollars, which is something like $160 million, then they're going to be taxed for that amount of money over the $160 million, and that money is going to go to the lesser earning teams. Now, the problem with that, and the thing that I object to strenuously, is that they didn't say, and that money that goes to those teams must be spent on players' salaries. If they had done that, it would have been a fabulous, fabulous system, because teams like the Tampa Bay Rays couldn't get away with spending, say, $45 million in salary when the Red Sox were spending $220 million. But that was the reason for it. That was they didn't want a player strike, so they came up with a sort of a compromise in a way. And not a stupid compromise. It's just that the second half of the equation, which is that the owners of the less successful teams must spend that money on players, doesn't exist.
Right.
And they call that a luxury.
Well, let me just note something about the A's before we go on to the Cubs. The A's owner, Schott, is one of the real billionaires in this world. He's got all the bucks in the world, and chooses not to spend it until something is done with the stadium. And
right.
This last week, something concrete seems to be happening.
Okay.
Oakland is losing the Raiders to
Yep.
Las Vegas. They're losing
Yep.
the Warriors to San Francisco. And
Yep.
they got to keep somebody. And if you're a baseball fan, and an Oakland fan in particular, you may have lucked into something where there is a site that's right near an existing BART station,
Yep.
and it's available, and the parties seem to be getting it together. There's a mayor. Her name is Mayor Schaff, I think her name is. I think she pronounces it. And she seems to be very gung-ho about keeping the A's. The Raiders are gonzo. There's no question in my mind that they're going to Vegas. They say they need owner's approval, this, that, and the other thing. But Mark Davis, the owner's dad, didn't need owner's approval when he decided to go to L.A. There.
Well, he did it. He needed it, but he just went anyway.
He just went right.
Yeah,
He just went anyway.
The NFL.
So this kid will get it.
The Rams moved from St. Louis back to L.A., and there was absolutely no question about it because needing the approval in the NFL to move is a bunch of nonsense.
Right.
Well, I mean, every owner is scratching the back of the other owners.
Oh, of course.
You know, it's the only time is if you get an owner like a Bill Veeck, who owned the St. Louis Browns, and he wanted to move the team to Baltimore, and all the other owners said yes, the Browns can move to Baltimore, but Veeck can't go with them.
If you sell them, they can move. Yeah,
that's right. If you sell them, they can move.
Yeah.
So he did.
Right. Wow, that says it all. Always seem to be bringing big business into the sport that we love.
Well, without a doubt. I mean, that's, you know, if you're going to pay, you know, a baseball player $25 million a year, which they're doing, you better bring somebody. You better bring somebody in to pay the freight.
I have a friend
better
of mine,
do it.
I have a friend of mine in Ohio who's going to the first game of the World Series Tuesday night.
Holy smokes! What's that ticket cost him?
He bought 2 tickets for $1,100 apiece.
$1,100 apiece.
Yeah.
Well, that's who gets to go.
Yeah, because
that's right. That is who gets to go. Yeah.
Stadium, and Shea Stadium, I don't think I ever paid more than $15 a game.
For what? For World Series. I don't think I ever did either.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I would pay $6 for the best box seat in Yankee Stadium, and then I would smear the usher another $10 to let me sit in the owner's box.
Yeah, it was.
Oh wow, a great move.
It was fantastic.
In 1978, I went to 29 World Series games. I don't think I ever paid more than $15 a game, and or more than less than that. Sometimes I paid $8. You know,
well, now I mean,
paying 75 cents to arrange a game or a Knick game, a Geo ticket,
with a Geo card,
sitting up.
Right. Yeah. That's right.
Sitting up in the balcony.
Yeah.
No, without a doubt. Now, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if you want to look back on the good old days and you want to put reasonable inflation into your thinking when you think how things have gotten out of hand, just say, let's assume everything that we spend cost 7 times more. You buy an automobile today, it costs 7 times more than it costs, conservatively maybe, it's probably a little more now, maybe 10 times more than what we paid in the 60s and 70s and the late 70s. Now, compare that to the price of beer at a ball game, how that's gone up, the price of a T-shirt that you buy, a cap that you buy, everything associated hasn't gone up 10 times. It's gone up 100 times in some cases. Am I right about it?
Well, but all of this happens because the owners no longer own the players. Until the reserve clause was broken, the teams basically own the players. So if you sign Mickey Mantle for the 1956 season, he was yours for the 1957 season, and only you could offer him the contract. And so he either took your contract or, pretended to go on strike during spring training for a couple of weeks until George Weiss would then offer him another, $3,000 and he'd sign. But once free agent came into being, once Marvin Miller freed the players, all bets were off. And you saw it from the very, very first when the Reggie Jacksons went from making $140,000 a year to making a couple of million.
Right. You also saw who the bitter men were in baseball too. The ones that, guys like Bob Feller and what.
Oh yeah.
Who just?
Feller, I felt bad for Feller though. I did.
Well, I used to go to the card shows. I used to go for the old timers because they needed it more than the superstars making all the money.
Right.
Yeah, that brought.
Feller spent his whole rest of his life just traveling from ballpark to ballpark, signing autographs.
He was always up
minor
in
leagues too. He was out on that circuit.
He wasn't a bad guy. He really wasn't.
Yeah.
He just was somebody who he was just, he was that farm boy. He was always that farm boy.
And he organized all the barnstorming.
He was resentful.
After the season,
what's that?
Barnstorming all the time.
Well, I'm talking about when he was in his, 70s.
Yes.
I mean, I wouldn't call it barnstorming necessarily. I'd say
when they played after the season.
After the season, he was pitching. He used to book barnstorm, but
that's when he was a kid. That he made a small fortune doing that.
Oh yeah.
Oh, those guys are playing Satchel Paige and.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which brings me to something I was brought aware of. I knew it back in the days. When Jackie comes into baseball in 1947, shortly thereafter, one of the African American industries, big industries in this country, folds. Negro League Baseball, and anybody listening, that's what they called it back in those days. It was the Negro Leagues.
They managed to hold on till 1960, but after that, it was all gone.
Well, it was pretty well. Was pretty well all gone in the early 50s.
Yeah, exactly.
Because what happened very quickly is that they're young stars. Once you lose the young stars, the old stars are one thing, but when you lose the young stars, then there's no sort of tube of talent coming your way, and so the Ernie Bankses and the Hank Aarons and the Willie Mazes, and each team would pick off the Roberto Clemente, Larry Doby. They picked off one guy.
Yeah.
So they didn't want to be accused of being racist. They picked off one guy for the most part.
Right.
The Dodgers, of course, had 3 or 4 of them. They had not only Jackie Robinson, but they also had Don Newcomb, and they had Roy Campanella, and later Junior Gilliam, and the Dodgers really were colorblind.
Vex teams had black guys. Giants had black guys. It's the Red Sox.
The National League, I must say, the National League had more black guys than anybody.
Oh yeah.
Oh, no question.
Way ahead of the American League.
But the Red Sox and the Yankees in particular came to it very, very late.
Well, it wasn't an accident. When I was researching Dynasty, I found a letter in their archives where this big time scout for the Yankees saw this player playing in Birmingham by the name of W. Mays, and he wrote this letter that said, you ought to sign this guy, and it was ignored, of course, because George Weiss was afraid that if there were black fans in Yankee Stadium, that they would, the white fans would stop coming, which was ridiculous. But that's how he felt, and that's why Ellie Howard came as late as 1954, really didn't start playing until 56, 57. He was the most valuable player of the entire league in 61. 63. Yeah. That's right, 63. But he should have started being a star with the Yankees, a long time before that.
They shipped Vic Power to the Philadelphia A's because Weiss said Vic Power was Puerto Rican and he was dating a light-skinned Puerto Rican woman.
That's right.
He shipped Power to the A's because he said he wasn't the Yankee type, whatever that meant.
Also, Power had a big mouth.
Yeah.
Power, thought what Weiss was doing was terrible and told him so.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily a good thing.
That's why the A's got rid of.
But when they gave up the slickest fielding first baseman that we grew up watching.
Yeah.
As far as no one was
without a doubt.
Right.
Yeah, but Weiss was in charge, and I have to tell you that the owners of the Yankees were in agreement with him.
Oh yeah.
Topping and Webb didn't think about it any differently than the way George Weiss thought about it. If Topping or Webb had wanted African American players, they'd have said to Weiss, get us some African American players, but they didn't.
Hey, if Topping and Webb really cared about African American players, they wouldn't have had spring training in St. Petersburg, Florida, or they would have insisted that those hotels integrated and didn't force players like Ellie, and it wasn't just the Yankees, it was the Cardinals too who were there, and they forced players like Ellie Howard, Bill White, Kurt Flood, who talking about him earlier, to go to boarding houses. I mean,
well, what they did in St. Petersburg, there were black families on the South Side who hosted Ellie Howard and who hosted Bill White and hosted those Cardinals. The black Cardinal players didn't have a bad time of it, except that they were always being slighted in that the St. Petersburg Yacht Club would have a breakfast for the Cardinals and not invite the black players. And, of course, one of my sort of favorite stories in a way, since I live in St. Petersburg, and I know how much it meant to the town, was that when the San Francisco Giants were thinking of leaving San Francisco, your dear Giants, and moving to my St. Petersburg, Bill White, who was the National League president and who had suffered from the racism and the Jim Crow when he was playing for the Cardinals, said to himself, "Over my dead body." And he went and found himself a San Francisco buyer for that team, and he kept that team in San Francisco, by golly.
One of the worst.
That is a great story. I've heard that.
Hall of Famer Tom.
Read that from you. But it makes me tingle for a number of reasons. Bill White originally came up as a New York Giant.
Yeah,
that's right. That's true.
That's a wonderful story. I love that.
Well, it's historically it's very interesting. And when White told it to me for my St. Louis Cardinals, St. Louis Browns book, he left me with my mouth open. I mean, I just couldn't believe it.
You say the St. Louis Browns. I immediately think of Veg because you mentioned him a few moments ago.
Yep.
I interviewed a fellow. His name is Don Wardlow.
Okay.
Don Wardlow worked as a broadcaster in the minor leagues, working for Mike Veg.
Okay. Yep.
And Bill's son, who is
right.
kind of a maverick himself, owns a number
Definitely.
of minor league teams.
Yep.
And Don Wardlow, you got to hear this interview. I'm going to send you a link to it.
Okay.
Is a blind gentleman. He has no
right.
eyes.
Okay.
He was the first, and as far as I know, the only blind baseball broadcaster. And
we have a blind Ed, and I wish I could think of his last name right now. Ed, boy, it's killing me. Is also blind, and he does ball games, and the man is absolutely amazing. Ed Lucas is his name, and this guy is fantastic. And he is blind. He used to do the Pelican games, the St. Pete Pelicans in the Senior League, and I knew him from the Pelican games. And then I ran into him about 15 years later, and I said, "Hi, I'm Pete Golenbock," and he said, "Oh yes, I remember you." And he then rattled off in detail conversations that we used to have. I was just blown over by this guy. So blindness.
I remember every moment. That taking nothing away from this guy, people tend to remember conversations that they have with you, Mr. Golenbock. Just saying.
Oh, you're very nice.
Yeah, well, I am.
Because I don't remember what I had for breakfast.
I don't remember.
No, you remember more than you say. And again, I just want to reiterate, people appreciate that, and they appreciate that you do share this stuff, and I continue to be thrilled that you do. Let's talk about Cubbies.
Cubbies, yes, Cubbies.
You wrote a book.
Peanuts Lowry. Does anybody remember Peanuts Lowry?
Yeah.
He was a great golfer. I remember that.
He was an extra in a lot of Hollywood movies.
Yeah. Well, he was also in the 1945 World Series, the Cubs' number 3 hitter. How do you like that?
Oh.
Yeah. They traded him and Harry Walker to the Reds. And
they did.
Hank Sauer and Frankie Baumholz in exchange.
Wow.
Wow. And they were a
dynamic duo. I found Hank Sauer on the Facebook. Somebody put up one of his cards.
That's what Facebook is so wonderful. Fritz Peterson is one of my Facebook friends.
Yeah, he's mine.
And he every day he puts up cards of players, and it's so entertaining. I can't recommend enough to you people who don't know what Facebook is. You ought to get involved
I'm in quite a number of groups. In fact, I helped start several of them.
Is that right? I didn't know you could start a group.
A friend of mine wanted to know what I thought. He started a Sweet 16 group, which is baseball before the first expansion, and a Yankee group, which originally was the 5 straight teams from 49 to 53, and was expanded.
Oh yeah.
Because
so what? Only people who want to talk about that subject can be in that group. Is that the idea?
Yeah.
Well, not necessarily. It could be an open group, a closed group.
Yeah, and if you want to go,
Comfortably Zoned Radio.
I can approve most of these groups I'm in.
Do you allow any people who are in the basket of deplorables?
We try to keep. In fact, I dropped out of one baseball group because listen to this one. I went to it today. Somebody put up. What's your favorite? Trump Cubs, Trump Indians, Clinton Cubs, Clinton Indians. And I thought they had absolutely no place to be in a site like that. And they have this group had too many. What's your all-time team? Who's better than who? All this
I
I
know.
decided I had enough.
Good.
I dropped out of that today.
Good. Meanwhile, John D'Acquisto has a brand new book out.
I've read about
Long John.
Yeah.
You reviewed it on this show a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, did I? Okay, well, in case you
terrific.
Yeah.
It's a terrific book. God.
Now,
really
I want to ask you, do you know the name, Peter, do you know the name Christopher Jennison?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Sure I do. Absolutely I do.
Tell me a little bit about him, because he put together 2 of my favorite books of all time. One of them is on the Yankees. It's called Peanuts and Pinstripes, and it has wonderful pictures. He wrote it with Ray Robinson.
That's right.
And the other is a book that I don't even know if you know exists, Peter, and I think Alan and I discussed it once. It's called Wait Till Next Year. It was written before.
No, I know the book very well. I happen to know him. He's a lovely, lovely guy. Terrific guy.
Great pictures combined with wonderful text, and
I have it autographed. He was
it's a very, very, very nice book.
Yeah.
Nobody much knows about it because they probably didn't sell more than 2,000 books. But it is a lovely book.
He came to one of our regional meetings years ago, and I brought it. I had him autograph it for me.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah. That's a great book, and I just wanted to pass that around. Can you tell me something about Christopher Jennison? Because I haven't been able to find anything really about him. He's certainly not on Facebook. And how did you come to know him, Peter?
Well, he called me up one day about 30 years ago, and he wanted my advice about something. And I was more than happy to talk to him and give it to him. Exactly what it was, I don't remember. But I complimented him on the books that he wrote. I think he was more into, and I could be entirely wrong about this, but I think he was more into advertising. I think that might have been his specialty, advertising.
Okay.
But he loved the game. He loved the game of baseball. He just absolutely loved it, and wrote these lovely books.
Yeah, the wait until next year has basically the Giants, the Yankees, and
No, it's about New York baseball.
and the Dodgers.
It's a book about New York baseball.
Right through the prime of those great years.
Well, that's right.
It's a wonderfully done book. So if anybody's out there and they want to go to Amazon, your book is on Amazon about the Cubs. What was your best experience writing that book, Peter?
Well, it's always the people that you interview. Always the people you interview. I interviewed, I should go and get it and be more specific about it. But I interviewed the captain of the 1927 Cubs, Woody English.
Yeah.
Woody English was 92 or 93 years old, something like that. And we talked for a couple hours, and he was just absolutely scintillating. He was stupendous. He was there when the Cubs would go to spring training on the island. Catalina Island. People don't realize that before the Dodgers came along, the Los Angeles Dodgers, the Cubs had a AAA team in L.A.
And they had Wrigley Field. They played in Wrigley
Field. It was called. That's right. It was called. That's exactly right. It was called actually Wrigley Field. And the O'Malley, being the smart character that he was, traded the ball field that he had in Fort Worth, Texas, to Phil Wrigley, for his property, for Wrigley's property in Los Angeles, and that's how the Dodgers were able, quite frankly, to move to L.A.
Yeah, the Angels in their first year of expansion played in that place.
Yeah,
L.A. Wrigley Field. It was a bandbox.
Yeah, absolutely bandbox.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right.
Definitely.
The Dodgers also played in the Coliseum.
They certainly did.
Well, it was 90,000 against 23,000.
Amazing. Amazing. When they had Roy Campanella Day, they had 102,000 people in that ballpark.
That's the only reason O'Malley shouldn't be rotting in hell right now. He did that for Campy, and
no, he should be rotting in hell. Yeah, he should be rotting in hell. No, we're not giving him a pass.
Okay, well, but he did take care of Campy, and
he did take care of Campy. Yes, Roy. For you viewers who don't know who Roy Campanella is, he was the Hall of Fame Dodger catcher from 1947 until he had a car accident in the January of 1959. He was going to go with the Dodgers to L.A. He had a liquor store in Harlem, and on his way home from the liquor store, his car slid on the ice and turned over, and poor Campy broke his neck, and it was horrible. He was never able to walk again. He spent the rest of his life in a wheelchair. His dutiful wife left him, leaving him heartbroken. It was a terrible thing for poor Campy.
It was right before seatbelts came in too, and
yes, that's true.
Seatbelts
there were no seatbelts were not on the list of things that people had.
Right,
you're absolutely right. Yep.
They may have been an option at that time, but probably
I
not
don't think
even
so.
that.
Nah.
Yeah.
No,
I don't think
late
so.
in life, they devised some sort of gizmo that he could sign his name with.
Yes.
And
yes, he did.
I thought that was pretty sickening.
And they were charging an arm and a leg for the autographs.
I remember being turned off to that entirely. I thought that was degrading.
Except. It
gave him some bucks.
Great. No, forget the bucks. It gave him the opportunity to hang with his fans.
To get out.
It was an opportunity for him to get out of the house and do something wonderful. It wasn't so terrible.
Well, I mean, it was
I know. I understand. You Bernie people are that way, but it's okay. It was all right. It was okay.
Oh God, I wish you were there today. We wouldn't have to worry about even the war response.
Oh,
never mind.
He's worried about World War III. All these cockamamie characters all worried about World War III. Don't worry, folks.
You caught that.
We're not going to have World War. We're not going to have
Hutz
World
gets in
War.
there and he says, I don't care. You're a Korean guy. I don't like you. Here, let me throw you a little nuke. That might not come back and hurt me.
I'm not talking about Trump. I'm talking about Hillary. You were bitching about Hillary the other day. Forget Trump.
Hillary is well, I don't even want it. We're not going to tonight. We're not.
No, we're not talking about that. Anyhow, so back to Roy Campanella.
Yeah.
Right, okay, back to the Cubs. How about this?
Back to the Cubs.
Rest in peace, babe.
Yeah. So the Cubs won the World Series in 1908. In 1908, they won the World Series, and then what happened? I don't know what Phil Wrigley's problem was. But I'm not convinced that, I don't know, did he really want to win? They had so many bad teams for so many years. Until 1969, when they had Leo DeRocher as the manager. And this wonderful team with Santo, it had great pitching, had Hundley catching, had Banks, Billy Williams, but then Leo, being Leo, didn't trust either young players or substitute players. So his plan was to play the eight starters every single day. And they fell apart. In '69, they fell apart. If you remember, the Mets ended up winning the pennant when the
I remember well. Yes.
And then you had 84. You had 84. And then 80. Then you had Bartman.
89.
What was Bartman's year?
2003.
2003. Now this may be the worst thing that ever happened to the Cubs in history. This guy Bartman.
No,
he's
getting screwed because the shortstop.
Oh, he's not getting screwed. I'd have killed him. I'd have flat out killed him.
The shortstop made an error.
I don't care. I don't care.
Made double play.
I don't care.
That mattered anything with their lead.
I don't care. This is the ball.
Did you get to interview Charlie Grimm when you did your book on the Cubs? I think Charlie Grimm, or
I think Charlie had died by then. But I got to interview who was the MVP one year for the Cubs.
Hank Sauer?
Wonderful hitter. Wonderful hitter.
Hank Sauer must have been.
It was somebody else who was an MVP. This guy was fabulous. These players, especially the ones, Swish, I think, had died. It's stupid. I should have the book sitting in front of me, and I should sound like I know what I'm talking about. But
I just want memories from off the top of your head. Anybody that you really enjoyed their interview? Did you?
I enjoyed every single one of them. I mean, the behind the scenes business about what they went through. I'll tell you who I loved. I loved the people who went through the College of Coaches, which was
that's
61.
Elvin's Happy and those guys.
Yes. And the wonderful pitcher who wrote those two wonderful books, Jim Brosnan, who was a Cub at that time. And I went to Chicago and went to Jim Brosnan's house and sat with him for a couple hours, and we talked a great deal about the College of Coaches. Now, this was a Phil Wrigley idea because his managers had been so lousy. His idea was, well, if we change managers every couple of months, then we won't be saddled with the lousy managers. So he basically had 6 coaches, all of whom swapped being the manager after a couple of months. The problem
and those guys went down to when they weren't managing and coaching in the big leagues, they went down to the minor leagues. It wasn't a crazy scheme because those guys would get to know the minor. In theory, they get to know.
Let me tell you where the crazy scheme came in, as told to me by Brosnan and about 5 or 6 of the other players who had to play under this system. And that was that every manager had his idea of how to play the game, and secondly, on who should be starting. And so each time they got a new manager, it was like starting all over again, which is absurd. I mean, it's just totally ridiculous.
I have a story about that. I interviewed Dick Groat in 1985. I spent several hours with him. Now, Groat was on the Cardinals in 1964, and I asked him about the trade that brought Lou Brock over.
Yep.
For Ernie Broglio, and there were some other fringe players in that deal. But he told me that the Cardinals initially thought it was a bad trade. And then Brock went to hit like .350 for the rest of the season with the Cardinals and helped them get to the World Series.
Yeah.
And I asked Dick Groat, I said, Mr. Groat, what did you think about what happened with Lou Brock? He said, well, he came over here and he was told he was going to play every day. He said when he was on the Cubs under the College of Coaches, he didn't know whether he was coming or going.
Right. That's right.
So he said he felt like he was let out of jail when he was traded.
No, I'm sure he was.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely sure that he was. Oh, I know.
You know, Broglio is a pretty good pitcher, but that turns out to be one of the worst deals.
Broglio. We had Broglio in San Francisco in 1998 at the Saban National, and he handled, obviously the first question he got was about the trade, and he handled it with a lot of humor and a lot of grace.
Sure.
Really classy guy.
Most baseball players are wonderful people. Almost all.
I didn't mean it as a degradation to Broglio.
No, I know, but
I meant it as Brock had a very, very incredible career.
But he had to get out of the College of Coaches before he could fulfill his potential.
Right.
But, the joy of doing these books is for instance, when I was doing my book, the St. Louis Cardinals and the St. Louis Browns, the Spirit of St. Louis, I had the opportunity to spend several hours with the general manager who traded the great left-handed pitcher who went to the Phillies. Steve Carlton. The great Steve Carlton.
From St. Louis, yes.
From St. Louis to Philadelphia. And I said to him, I said, you had to have known that this is one of the great pitchers in baseball. Why the hell did you trade this guy? And he tells me the story. And it has to do with Carlton, a couple things. He was the player rep, and he was loud about it, which really offended Gussie Busch, the owner of the Cardinals. He had a mustache, which offended Gussie Busch. And so Gussie Busch said to this general manager, and he was a great general manager. He had a nickname. Tell me who he was.
Bing Devine.
Bing Devine. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm glad I have my assistants here. So I'm talking to Bing Devine, and I said, Bing, you knew that this was a great pitcher.
So are we, Peter, by the way.
Yeah. So Bing says to me, he said, this is what Gussie said to me. He said, that son of a bitch, you're going to trade by tomorrow. And if you don't trade him by tomorrow, you're fired. Whoa. So I mean, this is part of the joy of doing these books. You hear it right from the lion's mouth.
They all kinds of stupid moves
they got
made
Rick Weiss for him. Rick Weiss is a pretty decent pitcher and a decent hitter.
Oh well, I mean, and Bing said
anywhere near Carlton's class.
Well, look. Bing said to me, I had one day to make this trade.
Yeah.
The fact that I could get somebody as good as Rick Weiss, I thought was pretty good.
Yeah. And Rick Weiss was good. He was good with the
Rick Weiss was good, but look, Steve Carlton. There was only one Steve Carlton.
Yeah.
Right. No question about that.
Yeah.
Only one Alan Blumberg. So
only one Alan Blumberg. That's also true.
Blumkin, not Blumberg.
Blumkin.
Blumkin. I'm sorry. Geez.
Who said Blumberg?
Ralph.
There was a Ron Blumberg.
I know. I had him on the show, and when I think of the H's of the world,
he's an old friend. Wonderful, wonderful guy. He had a team in the Israeli Baseball League a couple of years ago.
Really? I didn't know
really?
that.
He did.
He told us, I think it was Wayne Unger and I interviewed him, and he told us stories of growing up in Atlanta, being Jewish, and playing ball, and having teammates in the Klan, and what have you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wasn't an easy road to hoe being a Jew in the South ever. The way I look,
my favorite story about that. I was interviewing Cal Abrams for my book Bums.
Right.
Now he was a Jew who was playing minor league ball in Texas for the Fort Worth team in Texas. So he gets down to Fort Worth, and one of the players wants to know where his horns are. Where are your horns?
And he meant it.
And he meant it. Oh, he absolutely meant it. And another one of his teammates said to him, "Are you a Catholic Jew or are you a Protestant Jew?"
God.
Oh yeah, it's imagine what you must go through.
Well,
again,
this was
minority,
19,
being any
1940s.
sort of a minority.
Yeah.
And we both may disagree, Peter, on Hillary or Bernie and this, that, or the other thing. But I think the most despicable act in the entire world of any politician running for office is when that guy, Trump, dished the Muslim family who lost their son fighting for America. And
that's where Hillary was much. Yes, Hillary was much.
I think she won the election on that.
I think so too.
Matter. The emails don't matter.
The fact that Billy Bush, which is the most funny thing in the world, Billy Bush is the nephew of George W. Bush.
Yeah.
That's what cracked me up. That dialogue on the bus. I mean, when Hillary said that half of those people who root for Trump are in the basket of deplorables, I thought she was being kind. I thought she was understating what was going on in this country.
Right.
It was far more people than half.
She must be 85%.
That's what I thought.
To do with those votes.
I don't know.
Well, the only poll I look at is 538, and I look at that every few hours. And the last time I looked at it, she was at almost at 87.
Yeah, what I love is you go on Facebook and you find polls from the We're Going to Be Great Again.com showing that Donald Trump has got 94% of the vote. And they put this stuff on the internet.
And the vitriol that you get from these Trump people.
Oh, my goodness.
I look at political posts. I don't comment on any of them, but I look at them.
Oh.
And the vitriol from these Trump people is just beyond belief.
I just say very simply, sir, you belong in the basket.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, you posted a YouTube. I can't think of it. The sportscaster that
Keith Olbermann.
It was so well done.
He's a brilliant man.
Absolutely.
I've loved that guy for years and years. He's so prescient.
Yeah, and then somebody.
And the other one, which is really kind of surprising. Bill Maher.
Go in. Pardon me?
Bill Maher is the other one.
He's
magnificent.
Yeah, there's another guy, John Oliver, a British guy who was on HBO all the time.
Yeah, he drives me a little bit crazy because he starts and then 20 minutes later he's still going.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I mean, his heart's in the right place.
Bill Maher does an interview. I posted an interview that Bill Maher did with Netanyahu recently, and I'm not a.
Oh yeah, how's old Netanyahu doing these days? He and his buddy Paul Ryan. Son of a bitch.
He's picking up some big bucks from both parties, and he knows that Israel will always be America's 51st state.
That's for sure.
he knows it's politics because our when I say the government of the United States, their quote ally is Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
So think about that. The worst country in the world for women.
Right. Right.
Right. Human rights.
Yeah, try explaining that to the world.
Right. Exactly. So he kind of snickers and he goes, I know how to play the game of politics. All Netanyahu cares about is that Iran does not get the nuclear bomb. I don't know what.
And they're not going to. Thanks to Barack Obama.
Well, I would say I thank him for an awful lot, and
as you should.
As you should. And when I look back to see that his
but fortunately,
they won't.
Ralph, we're not talking politics.
No, that's true. But,
fortunately, we're not talking politics.
God, thank you, Alan, for not kicking us both off the air because you've got control of it.
Oh, you could have, Alan. That would have been a good idea.
I exercise restraint.
Yes.
Well,
meanwhile, the witching hour is coming, and it's time for me to go back to my wife.
Okay. Well, you're going back to Wendy. I'm going back to Pally. Alan is going back to being the genius, the maven of Facebook when it comes to baseball. And I thank you both for being my friends.
It's our pleasure. It certainly is, Ralphie.
We'll do it next week, same time, same place.
Yeah.
Alan,
sounds like fun.
You know how to get us off.
How?
We'll see you next week, guys.
Take care.
Get you off.
Five star.
Okay.
5-star, and get you all on the flip-flop.
Okay. Take care.
Adios.